Welcome to Cardinals Nest 2.0. This is the show where we bring on alumni student athletes of St. Mary's University and catch up with what they're doing now and relive the past a little bit. And today we welcome Tera Bollig, a cross-country athlete at St. Mary's, 2007 graduate. I'm Dean Beckman, the faculty athletics representative for St. Mary's. My co-host on 2.0 is Donny Nadeau, the sports information director. And Donny, we can see Tera there. As always, she's got a smile on her face. And of course, Donny, the Bollig family name, certainly no stranger to St. Mary's, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You just keep bringing them in, and that's just fine with St. Mary's. Tera, thanks for being on. And we were kind of joking off camera. And then when Dean mentioned a 2007 graduate, you start to feel a little bit old, but then you actually made me feel better when you said that your sister was in first grade when you started college, and now she's in grad school. So now I don't feel quite so bad. Other people can feel old too.
Yeah, and she ran cross country and track there, as well as my other sister, Ashley. So got 3 of the 4 that went to St. Mary's and ran there. So.
Well, Tera, I was super excited to have you on because, of course, you were a public relations major when you were at St. Mary's. So along with Dr. Schild, I was one of your faculty advisors. So it's always good to see you and catch up with you again. But we also want to relive your athletic days here at St. Mary's a little bit. So we'll kind of talk academics and what you're doing now a little bit later on in the program. But when you think back to your time at St. Mary's, having graduated in 2007, and think about your time on the cross-country team, just wonder what are some of the memories that come to mind for you?
Yeah, I think it's just such a mix. Anytime I visited St. Mary's and I go in the Bluffs, I just instantly go back to just our group runs in there and just all of our conversations. And we were in those Bluffs every day. And we always used to go in through Kirk Trail and down Yon straightaway. So every time I think of that, I just think of all the great conversations, and it was just so much support. So when you're going through finals or something stressful happens, you just run it off and talk through it. And then all the exciting announcements and things like that we talked about, and just a lot of great memories at our races and things like that. One thing that always brings a smile to my face is when we would host our home meets, and we just always took so much pride in the fact that we run in these super hilly bluffs, and everybody else has to try to survive these bluffs that they've never run in before. And so that was always really fun.
When you were first looking at coming to St. Mary's and thinking about running cross country, did you have an idea about how difficult of a course St. Mary's is, and really one of the toughest courses in the state of Minnesota? Or did that not really hit until you actually got out there practicing in them on a daily basis?
Yeah, that didn't hit until our first meet, freshman year. Our first meet was always the home meet. So you have to make sure you train all summer. And even then it's hard, that first one out. And I just remember my freshman year, just, wow, this is this is a lot of work. I came from a small town, basically not a lot of hills, and you just really get in there. But I also remember thinking how beautiful it was, and just being able to, even during practices and stuff, just seeing all the deer and animals and everything like that. And it's just such a great course. And I still go back for the alumni meet just because I love it so much. So.
Tera, what was it initially that drew you to St. Mary's? What was it that really kind of got you to say, okay, St. Mary's is the place for me?
Yeah, I mean, I knew I wanted a smaller school, and my mom happened to see it in a magazine or something like that and told me about it. And I remember I had visited a couple of bigger state schools, and on our way to Winona, we weren't even there yet, and I saw the Bluffs. I had never been south of the cities, and when we got down there and I saw how beautiful it was, I made up my mind on my way there that I wanted to go to school there. And then right when I got on campus, John Skemp, he was the cross country coach my freshman year, just a very enthusiastic guy, and he was the first person that just ran up to us when we first got there. And I thought, wow, this place is special, and I need to go here. And so my decision was made.
Now, Tera, speaking of special, you're in your den there up in the Twin Cities, and I see you have St. Mary's memorabilia there. I think that speaks to the importance of being an athlete in the student-athlete dichotomy there. Maybe talk about what some of those medals and that picture you have behind you, kind of what that means to you, just kind of personally.
Yeah, so the picture behind me is the framed uniform from cross country. And the thing that makes it even more special is that my youngest sister gave it to me. So my youngest sister, Maddie's 13 years younger. And as I mentioned, she ran there and she felt like that would be a great gift for me. And so it's super special. And then on the inside, it's kind of hard to see from here, but one year my parents actually got these little running ornaments and they painted a St. Mary's uniform on there and made it look like it was a runner from St. Mary's. And so they gave that to all three of us, and just a super special bond that we have as a family, and the fact that all three of us, or three of the four sisters, ran there. And so that's awesome. And then I think the medals that are hanging behind me, it just really goes to show how it is just such a passion for me. And St. Mary's really, you just feel that passion for a lifelong kind of running career, I guess you would say. So after school, I did a lot of marathons and half marathons, and now I'm really trying to get into trail running more because it just brings me right back to cross country when I'm in the trails, and I love it.
Tara, how much influence did you have on your two younger sisters that came here? Were you recruiting them, so to speak, to attend St. Mary's, or did you
Well,
just
I think
focus a little?
since, I mean, my youngest sister and actually both of them, they were visiting St. Mary's all the way, they were really young when I started going there. And so it just kind of became a second family to them before they even were of age to pick a school. And so I don't even honestly know if they looked at another school. They just kind of, admired that I went there as well. And they really wanted to run after going to so many meets, and they both ran in high school and things like that. And so I feel like both that and from an academic standpoint, there were definitely programs that they wanted to get into at St. Mary's as well. So it was just kind of a natural fit for them.
Well, I have to tell you, Dean and I, whenever we have a cross country or track and field athlete on, we always have to make it known that Dean and I run, but we are not runners. You're a runner. We just run.
You're a runner. If you run, you're a runner.
Tara, I do want to get to your marathon and trail running in just a little bit. However, tell us a story about one of your favorite alumni opens that you came back to. You had mentioned that you come back to alumni opens, and you had told me a story a few weeks ago that it kind of brings out the best of the competitive spirit in you. So why don't you tell our viewers that story?
Yeah, so I actually take pride in the fact that I graduated in 2007, and I have not missed a single home meet, and I've not just gone to watch, I've gone to run. And so, except for obviously with COVID now, and it had to be canceled last year, but I believe it was 2019, and the home meets in usually around September 1st. And so I went down, and it's just, even that's just such a fun community, because as I've been out of school for so many years, I don't know a lot of the younger runners. And so I always enjoy meeting them, and as well as people that were there before I even was. And so I've connected with a couple alumni that I didn't even know and I didn't run with, but we've become friends, and we get together for some races and stuff like that. So this particular meet, there were a couple alumni runners that I never ran with, but we were all there, and we were all in pretty good shape because we were trail running and stuff all through the summer, training for our own races. And so we got there, and the alumni atmosphere is a little laid back, and we're just like, oh, I guess we should probably like warm up a little bit so we don't pull a hamstring. And so anyway, the gun goes off, and these girls just take off. I'm like, wow, like they're really going out of the gate fast. And so I go with them, like looking at my watch, wow, we're going out really fast. We're alumni, like we have to remember this. And instantly, I mean, when you talk about the hills and the bluffs, I swear they get steeper every year. I thought it was hard my freshman year of college, try like many years later. And so, but it was just so fun. And I just like instantly just that race instinct, and just being able to, even with the alumni team, just having that competition. And so there was one particular alum, and we were just neck and neck the whole time, and we had to go up these big hills, and then we came down Apple Orchard, and you have only about a half mile to go at that point. And we were just having so much fun, just full out racing, which I wasn't expecting for an alumni meet. We just turned the corner, and I think I beat her just by like a tiny bit. And we were just, after we caught our breath, we were just laughing because we were like, that was so fun. And and just how you instantly just go back to that instinct of racing. So
Yeah, a 5K being fun, Dean.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm not sure about that, Tara. I don't think those two things go together.
Now, see, Donnie, this is where you and I agree with you, Donnie. I'm not sure we quite qualify as runners because Tara talked about marathons and trail running. So, Tara, what made you excited to get into marathon running, and how does that differ from, your typical college races or 5K events that Donnie and I might once in a while suit up for?
Yeah, I think actually when I graduated, it was a couple things. One, I would sign up for these 5Ks, and you quickly realize after you're off of that college training regimen, like you're never going to be as fast as you once were with those distances that you ran in college. And so it's kind of like, well, I kind of want a new challenge. And I've always loved distance running. And so, it was like this big thing where my friends and I were going to train for our first marathon, and we ran the Twin Cities Marathon as our first one, and a bunch of us actually trained together, things like that. And it was definitely a challenge. I mean, it's probably the biggest challenge that you can do as a runner is to complete a marathon. And it's just a different mentality where when you're, in college and you have those quote unquote shorter races, it's really about like hitting that time and making sure that you're getting out fast. And the marathon, you're in it for the long haul. And that, it's just this challenge that you can't experience any other way. So I was hooked on that for several years.
Well, I think that, I've never run more than 8 miles, I think is my top, but mental, you talk about the challenge. I mean, the challenge is as much mental as it is physical when it comes to those,
Oh yeah.
Longer distances. And how for you, what was your secret, or what was your key to, I mean, you get to that 8 mile mark, you get to the, the half marathon mark, heading in a full marathon. How do you keep going? What's your go-to?
Yeah, well, it's so interesting because when you're in a shorter track race or cross country race, it's mentally really hard as well, even when it's that shorter, but you just break it up a little differently. So like in a track race, you're like, oh, like get through the next quarter mile, or, you really got to pick it up when you have only one more lap to go, and things like that. It's just a much different strategy. And for the marathon and those really long distances, it's really about, training so that you're in shape enough to kind of just make sure you're taking it fairly easy, the first half, and then the first half of a marathon. I mean, everybody always jokes, even when you're running in a marathon, when you hit 18, it's like, well, now it begins. And so that's when it gets to be really mentally challenging. And then from there, I just break it up into just different chunks than I would have for the smaller races. So I break it into like, I got to get the next 3 miles. And then towards the end, it's like, I got to get that next mile. And then at the very end, I got to get the next block. And so you just kind of play, it's kind of like a mind game, and you just figure out everybody has their own solution for how to get through it.
My
and
mind
try to
game
have
is
fun
I'm
at the
tired
same
and I
time.
stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Tara, we have a series of kind of fun, more personal questions that we'll be getting to in a little bit. But first,
Yeah.
now let's transition, I think, into your professional life,
Yeah.
because you have been at Children's Minnesota really ever since you graduated in some capacity in different public relations and marketing capacities. You graduated from St. Mary's with 2 degrees, correct? Public relations, and then also literature with a writing
Yep.
emphasis. So kind of walk us through, a lot of young adults such as yourself, a lot of times you'll see them changing jobs every 2 years. But that has not been the case with you. You have maintained your position at Children's and have grown in different capacities there. So tell us about your profession.
Yeah, and I would like to say, the connections that I made with the cross country team and things like that through sports, it also, St. Mary's is just such a tight knit community that also helps in the job market once you get out of school. And so I actually got my foot in the door at Children's Minnesota because someone that I worked on the newspaper with at St. Mary's worked there at the time. And so that's how I got my foot in the door.
Was that Maggie?
And it was Pam, actually.
Pam. Oh, right. Pam. Thank you.
Yeah. And so, I started as an intern making $10 an hour, and they were like, well, we can't hire you now, but maybe we can. So I held on. It was kind of a running joke that I was the longest intern for a little over a year.
Well,
And
you're
then
good
I was
at
hired
running
on.
jokes, Tara, so.
No pun intended. So anyway, I've been there ever since, and just it's such an amazing organization, and it just fits so well with my skill set and what I was able to learn at St. Mary's, and really being able to adapt to different needs of the organization within my role and grow in that way. And so I've been it's just been great. I've been there almost 13 years now, and so just looking back at how much I've changed and evolved since I was an intern, it's kind of amazing to think about. But it just goes so fast. It's a blink of an eye. So.
And right now, what are some of your responsibilities now?
Yeah, so right now I'm the main lead for COVID-19 communication on our command center. So my role has shifted a lot to that, and right now specifically how we're getting vaccines to our staff, and then looking forward in the future for the next phases of distribution, testing, that type of thing. So that's been a really huge something that I never would have thought I would have ever worked on in my career, obviously. And I think it's just been great and a great challenge. And so, and pre-COVID, I was really focused on, and continue to be, but on that patient family experience and that patient family audience, and making sure that once they choose Children's Minnesota, that they have that best experience, and that I get them the communication they need to support that care.
Tara, as leading communications on COVID-19 for Children's, you're really kind of at the forefront of things happening in the communications industry profession. What's that like, sort of being a leader in that role and doing something that there is no precedent for? Like, you are setting the precedent. I don't know if you've really thought about that. But, you know,
Yeah.
in years to come, looking back, they're going to look at things you did and other leaders in the state of Minnesota, communication leaders, what they did to lead this state and organizations through a global pandemic.
Yeah, I guess I haven't, when you put it like that, I haven't really thought about it like that as much. It's more like, you know, things shift every day, and it's a lot of reaction. And as much as you try to be proactive, you just never know what's going to come up that day. There might be a new CDC guideline or something that we need to respond to. So yeah, I think me and all these other communicators at these health systems are really, doing what we can to pave the way. And it does come with a big sense of responsibility to make sure that we're communicating to not only our organization, but also outside of that. And so I do partner with my team a lot, you know, the digital team, things like that. And I also have a weekly call with the communications leads for a lot of the hospitals within the state. And so that's always helpful to be able to talk about our challenges each week and what we need to respond to from a communication standpoint. So it's nice to have that partnership.
You know, speaking of COVID, and we're kind of joking about this before we came on, and that is, you know, you do like to race, you do like to run in 5Ks and marathons, and with COVID, there just aren't any. Have you tried any of the virtual things, or do you just kind of are you putting the racing thing on hold for now?
Yeah, it's pretty much on hold, and I just haven't. A lot of my friends joke. I mean, we are constantly, since I graduated from college, I feel like I'm constantly training for a race. So in a way, it's kind of like this built-in, like, okay, just take a break. But also, I don't like to take a break from running, and I miss racing so much. So I did try a couple of virtual races. A couple of my friends and I are trying to maybe sign up for a virtual marathon just to have something. I think you know, when you talk about sports, whether it be in college or post-college or exercise in general, it's just, you have to have that motivation to do it, and to, you know, do hard workouts, and to like really put a lot of effort in. You kind of have to have that end goal of a race, or how are you going to prove success? And without that, I admit I have not been very motivated lately. And so I'm like, maybe a virtual race will motivate me. So,
Tara, one more question before we get to some of the fun stuff here, and that is, you know, right now I'm teaching principles of public relations, which is kind of the entry level PR class. What professional advice would you give somebody, you know, 18, 19 years old in college thinking about career in communications?
yeah, I would say you might have an idea of what you want to do and what you want to communicate, but just keep a really open mind. And employers, especially now, are really looking for somebody to be able to do a variety of jobs. My role has changed a lot, especially with COVID and being able to step into that kind of almost like crisis communication, which I wasn't really in before, and internal communications versus before. I mentioned I was more on the consumer side. And I think if you can just, St. Mary's is really great at ensuring that you have the skills to do a variety of that communication and just really hone in on that and get involved in as much as you can and learn as much as you can, because you might think that you want to go into a certain aspect of communications and you might be asked to do multiple, kind of wear multiple hats. So,
and then I also want to give,
I can jump in on that, Dean, and Tera's 100% spot on. You know, you could use my role as sports information director as a perfect example. You know, from what I was required to do when I started 26 years ago to what I'm doing now are not even close to the same thing. And you know, the other thing I would recommend to anybody that's thinking about any field is get an internship. You know, go get out in the field and learn. You know, you can learn in the classroom, but that practical real life experience is huge, because, you know, that's where you really learn about, you know, like you said, Tera, they're putting you in situations that this isn't in a textbook. You know, this is
exactly
real life stuff. So that's very important as well. But Tera was spot on. I was very happy with that answer.
Yeah, and
also,
I would say, reiterate, I know that students might get tired of hearing this from, you know, professors, but really network. I personally love to talk to students. I would talk to anybody who's going into public relations or anything else, thinking about it. I just enjoy making that connection with St. Mary's students. And also that's how I found my first job. And even when you're I would say even when you get your first job and then you're ready to go move on or network or whatever, I would say the marketing and communications field is like that in general. You kind of have to know people to kind of understand what's out there and what's needed and how you can support. And so just keep an open mind. And I know networking can be hard sometimes. It was very hard for me when I first graduated. I was more on the introverted side, but now I love it. And you'd be amazed at how small the world is once you start networking. So.
All right, so now we're going to get to some of these fun kind of personal questions, Tera, and kind of put you on the hot seat a little bit with these. So I'll start things off with, you're on a road trip. What is one restaurant where you have to pull over and eat?
I would say Wendy's, because I love the Frosty. I don't care about anything else, but I'll just get the Frosty.
Not the Baconator? No Baconator for you?
No, also a fun fact, I don't like bacon. So.
And I know this. I actually know that this answer you're going to struggle with, because I do know you. Your favorite sports team?
Yeah, so I actually had to think about that, because I don't usually watch sports outside of a running event, and so but the Minnesota Wild. I do like hockey better than a baseball or anything like that. So.
I'll ask the third question, but I'm still trying to get past the I don't like bacon comment. We have a unicorn on our show today.
Yeah, I don't like bacon and I don't drink coffee. So I would say both of those they kind of set me apart.
All right, third question. It's a rainy day. What's on your television?
The Office. I love that show. It cracks me up every time.
Okay. How about, since I got to ask your favorite sports team, how about your favorite athlete?
Yeah, I'd say Carrie Tollefson. She's a runner that actually lives in St. Paul. So I actually saw her on a run a couple of years ago, and she's just the nicest person. And so I have really admired her.
Now, earlier you shared some of your cross-country memories with us, but bringing it back to your time as an undergraduate at St. Mary's, what is the most memorable cross-country event for you? If you had to pick one, what would it be?
Yeah, so I'm gonna pick a meet. It was in lacrosse, and it was my senior year, and it was our last meet before conference, which was always a big deal because it's our last time to just get out there and race, kind of see where we're at for conference. And me and several other people had an amazing race. Like, we ran way faster than we even expected to. Everything just clicked together, and sometimes it can feel like that's not happening, and everything just hit on the right note for the whole entire team. And I just remember rounding that corner and going into the finish. And when I finished, I was just on cloud 9, and the whole bus ride home, I'll never forget that feeling. Just like, wow, we just ran our lifetime PRs and we have conference next week. And we were just so confident going into that, which is just, it can be hard, day to day to be in the sport that you're in and to be giving it your all every day. And so when you do have those races that just go perfect, it's something that you don't forget.
Tara, what's on your favorite running list?
Running Down a Dream by Tom Petty is definitely in my top. So.
If you were to have played any other sport, what would it have been if you didn't do cross country?
Probably soccer, just because I'm not really coordinated with the ball, but I love to run. So that's probably the next sport down that you can run a lot.
Okay.
All right, I'm skipping one, Dean.
All right, that's all right.
You're trapped on a deserted island with one former teammate. Who would it be?
Yeah, my teammate Ashley, we ran the same years, and she's just the most practical person I know. So I know she'd know how to like get us out of there. And she's also got really funny stories, so she'd get us through.
Well, then I'll take the one you skipped, Donnie. It seems appropriate, and it's the last one. Tara, you can go back in time anywhere in the world. What sports event are you going to attend?
I believe it was 1954 when Roger Bannister broke 4 minutes in the mile. So I would love to see that. And the other interesting fact about that is everybody thought it was physically impossible for somebody to run under 4 minutes. And once he did it, everybody started doing it. And so now I actually just looked it up before this call. The fastest mile is a 3:45. So you can see how much faster people have gotten since then, and just how it was just such, I mean, when you talk about a mental challenge, nobody thought it was possible, and a physical challenge, but and once somebody did it, like, oh, this is possible, I want to do it. So.
Well, Tara, that's all the questions we have. But Donnie, I know we were both thrilled to see Tara again, and fun to relive those cross-country memories.
Absolutely.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much. It was good
Thanks
to see you too.
Yep. All right. Tera Bollig, 2007 St. Mary's University graduate. Thanks for being on the show today. And thanks to you for watching. That's going to do it for Cardinals Nest 2.0.